I held an open house that was in my neighborhood. It was like $200,000. One person showed up. It was the middle of summer, and I ended up getting a $1.1 million commercial listing, the neighbor that came to the house. And so that was my very first deal, was a $1 million commercial listing. The appreciation of my assets is really what helped me become a millionaire at a pretty young age. And that's what's so difficult is so many Americans, they use leverage and then they go get more debt with what they saved because they use leverage. And that's where the whole Dave Ramsey methodology comes in, is if you can't really be trusted or trust yourself.
Most of the tax code is actually loopholes, how to pay taxes. Most people think, oh, the tax code is how to pay taxes. No, there's only a few pages of here's how to pay taxes. The rest is like, here's incentives that the government wants you to do in order for you to pay less taxes.
If you put in a compound calculator, your income being 40 or 50% higher every single year due to tax savings, your wealth gets compounded every single year, and it explodes way faster. But if you're losing half your money to Uncle Sam every year, it's going to take you way longer to truly build significant wealth. And I wasn't planning on lending $10 million out of the gates of my own cash. So I just decided to start targeting lower dollar amount loans that were higher interest, so I could put more loans out at a time and make a much higher return so I could compound my profits.
You were how old?
18.
So you made at 18, 36 grand, and you had the wherewithal to put 20 of it down on the property?
Yeah.
This is the Mr. Burr Show.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today, I am excited to interview someone I am super impressed with. By the age of 27, which I think me at 27, I was a baby still. So at 27, she became a multi-millionaire, self-made multi-millionaire. She has a nationwide hard money lending company, along with her own brokerage for residential and commercial and real estate. So super impressed to just dive in and for you guys to get a little bit of background on her upbringing, but also for her to teach you guys how she got to where she's at such a young age. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce to you guys, if you don't know her already, Hannah Hammond. Welcome to the show, Hannah.
Thanks so much, Devin. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So the people that don't know you, let's just give them kind of a brief background of your story, how you came up, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So I was born into a family that didn't have a lot of education, didn't have a lot of money. And I knew from a really young age that I wanted more for my life. And so I really dove into entrepreneurship and building wealth and utilizing technology to try to learn, because I didn't have a mentor or a network to really teach me those tactical skills. And Rich Dad Poor Dad was the first place I started. And then we just kind of started compounding from there.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. That was actually the first book I ever actually read. And this was like in 2015.
Wow.
I was slow to the game, but you said using technology. So what do you mean by that?
Just like the computer. And then I would read books as well. But luckily I was born in the world where we had a computer. And I just did research, like how to build wealth, how to get rich, and everything pointed to real estate and investing in companies. And so that's what I decided to dedicate my life to.
Got it. So Google, YouTube University, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Got it. I remember the first time someone asked me like, hey, where'd you learn all this stuff? When I would say stuff about finance and everything, I'm like, oh, YouTube University. They're like, how do I apply for that? And I'm like, it's not an actual university. You just go on YouTube and look up what you want to look up. So you were looking up things of how to build wealth, how to become rich, and it drove you to real estate. So how did you get into the real estate game?
So I knew I wanted to go to college just because no one in my family had gone to college, and I wanted to check that off the box and just have a backup plan, even though deep down I wanted to own my own company and be an entrepreneur at the end of the day. But I didn't want to go into a lot of college debt, and I didn't have a college fund or a bunch of savings to go move out of state. So I just decided to apply, work really hard in school, get the best grades I could so I could get a merit scholarship to an in-state university. And so I applied to ASU, obviously got accepted. I got a full ride scholarship there. I didn't know what I wanted to study, so I just picked I asked the counselor what the hardest thing was, and they said engineering. And I knew that would be the highest paying job in the least amount of time without having to get a doctorate or anything like that. So I went with engineering. I'm not an engineer, I'm not a good engineer, at least. And, but I did it. I went through it. I graduated in 3 years at the top of my class. But while I went to college, I was selling real estate, studying real estate, and learning real estate. So I actually got my real estate license on my 18th birthday. I signed up for school. And by the time I started college, I had already sold a few $1 million worth of real estate.
Nice. So just a standout at the age of like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah, I guess so. Internally, I was hurting for sure. But on the outside, work and school was kind of the one thing I could control. And so I was just an overachiever was my coping mechanism.
So you say internally, what do you mean by that?
Oh, I just really, really struggled growing up with just depression and anxiety and self-worth, self-esteem. I was, super insecure. I had an eating disorder in high school. I hated myself from the inside out and just didn't really have I didn't know my purpose. I didn't really have love for myself or anybody else for that matter. And so I just dedicated my life to working because I could control the outcome. Like I could be the number one person in class. And I thought that I could be a really good entrepreneur and business owner. And I was just really good at making money because I pretty much isolated myself from relationships and just dove into work anytime I was awake, I was just working or studying or researching, and it gave me hope to look forward and have something to look forward to in the future.
I like that. So I didn't think we were going to go down that path, but I think it's a good one to go down because I think so many people struggle with self-worth, the imposter syndrome. Like I've had that a ton. Like, why do I deserve what I have? Why me? Like, am I worth it? I think so many people have that. And how did you kind of get around that? It sounds like you just focused on one thing that you control and just became really good at that, right?
Right. Yeah. But I went down this journey of if I get this, if I accomplish this, then I will feel better. I'll be happy. I'll be worthy. I'll love my life. Right. So I was so dialed in on that outcome because I didn't want to go party with friends. Like that wasn't fun for me. I didn't want to, I was so miserable with who I was and the situation I was in. My only way out in my head was to become a millionaire and to have my own business and to have freedom and all these things. And so it was really easy for me to hyper focus. And Alex Hormozi talks about that a lot as like one of his biggest attributes to his success is his ability to focus and like be very kind of an asshole with his time because he knows what he needs to do to get to the result that he wants to get. And so that was me. I was just super, super focused and dialed in. But then at the point where I did become a self-made millionaire and I did have financial freedom and I accomplished all the things that I had been working the past, decade of my life for, and I realized I was still miserable and I still was like, ugh, like I still didn't want to wake up the next day. And that's when I started to really look internally and go on that journey of healing really internally and figure out that I do need relationships and really good relationships to be fulfilled. And I do need to take care of myself and take care of my body and take care of my mind and not just work all the time. So, but it is kind of like between a rock and a hard place, right? Because when you're trying to grow a business and you're so dialed in on your goals, it's really hard to be balanced and to, have that perfect slice of the pie where you just do business 25% of the time and then you have your relationships 25% of the time and whatever. But once I had that financial freedom and a little bit of a longer leash for myself to be able to have the time to step back, that's when I did. And I was able to really dial in like who I was, what my purpose was, and start building those healthy relationships externally and internally to really like find fulfillment.
And this was at 27 or before?
It was about 25 when I started to improve internally.
Because you became a millionaire at 25, multi-millionaire at 27.
Right.
Okay. Got it. So are you still dealing with that, like that self-worth and that, am I enough? Like, why am I not pretty enough? Why am I not this? Why am I not that? Like, we all deal with it. So are you going through that?
For sure. Yeah. Battle. I don't want to say battle, but it's an endeavor every single day. And I think speaking for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of that drive can stem from wanting to prove to themselves or to others that they are capable and they are worthy and that they are able to accomplish anything that they want in life. And so that's definitely a lot of where mine came from, and just the freedom of not wanting to be controlled by somebody else or being in a situation where I had no option. I was financially dependent on someone else. I never wanted that feeling of being trapped. And, but yeah, every day, there's times where I feel really, really good. And I'm like, I love myself. I love my life. I'm super proud of myself and I'm just on top of the world. And then there's other times where I'm like, you're unworthy, you're not beautiful, you're not smart, you're not successful, and all these things. So it's every day to really do the thing. I try to do the things that get me in a good state of mind every single day and really stop and smell the roses and surround myself with people that are just big cheerleaders for me and vice versa.
I love that. So speak to the fact that, like, from a woman's point of view, like as a man, we go through the same things, but we're men, we're tough. Like, we don't want to show our insecurities. So we bottle them up a lot. We don't talk about them a lot. It's more just like inner dialogue and how you deal with it as a man. So from a woman's point of view, how do you deal with that inner voice?
Oh, I'm still trying to figure out the answer to that myself, but I push it down a lot too. I've suppressed a lot, which I'm part of Genius Network, and they're talking about chronic back pain, which I have chronic back pain, and they're talking about how it's not anything wrong with your back. It's like suppressed trauma and suppressed like anger that you just haven't got out. And I'm such a people pleaser by nature because of, I think the self-worth thing and just wanting approval from other people. That I generally, like, even if someone does something to hurt me or steals from me or is out there to sabotage me or whatever, I'm pretty forgiving and like, okay, whatever. And I just move on and I don't show any anger or rage towards them, which a lot of people do. They don't have that emotional control, which can be a really good thing, right? Because in business, I think as leaders, having emotional intelligence and the capacity to control your emotions, even in really difficult situations, is super critical to your success as a leader in a business. However, it can lead to a lot of suppressed feelings that you just don't process and you don't let out, and you just, people can, it'll show up in your body and in your life in other ways. And so that's something that I'm still learning and working with right now, is trying to learn how to acknowledge the feelings and the maybe pain or the anger or the sadness that you're going through, rather than just steamrolling on to the next thing and then letting that build up as like a soul tumor. But yeah, I try to be super vulnerable, and because I know at the end of the day, we're all just humans that have pain inside of us, and we're all just trying to do our best out there. And a lot of people that judge others and try to put down others or try to, like to see you fail, I just try to see them as they're just their own hurting person, and it's not a me thing, it's a them thing. And I just try to really put myself in their shoes and know I don't know what's causing them to do that, but I just hope that they feel better and I can be a resource. Like, if I could share my story and help someone know they're not alone, because I felt really alone growing up, I just tried to deal with everything on my own. So it's okay. Like, if everybody hates me or judges me or whatever because I'm open and vulnerable, but one person says that I saved their life, which has been told to me many times, that's worth it to me. And so I'm okay with being vulnerable, because I don't think it's a weakness. I really see it as a strength, because we all have struggles. There's nobody that doesn't.
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've actually got this neck pain right now. Like, my neck will not stop hurting. And I don't like taking like regular like Tylenol, that kind of stuff, because anyone who studies like microbiome Do you know anything about microbiome?
Like your gut bacteria and stuff?
Yeah. So there's good bacteria, there's bad bacteria. When you take these different pills like ibuprofen and stuff like that, anything that's like I can't think of the word right now, but basically what it's doing is it's like putting a bomb in your stomach and getting rid of all the good bacteria, which is crazy. So I try not to take any Tylenol. So I just try to like weather through the pain, but I don't know why it hurts. Like I didn't do anything to make it hurt. I think it might just be, like you said, holding on to different things. Like I said, what I do is if someone ticks me off, I don't want to be combative. I kind of just, it is what it is. I'm just going to get over it. I think that might just be the stress is why my neck's hurting. So I love it. I love it. One thing with you that I'm actually really impressed of, the more I've gotten to know you, is you're very intellectual. Do you ever have like the stereotype of people think, oh, I'm just this dumb blonde? Do you ever get that? And does it irk you because you are very well-read? You're very articulate. You went to school. You like, does that get to you at all?
Not really. Yeah, and it happens every single day of my life, and I'm okay with it because we're humans and we all judge and we all have predispositions. And I probably think the same thing when I go see a pretty girl, that they're, similar to what people think that I am or something. But I think I just I compete with myself. I'm not out there competing with anybody else, and what other people think of me is none of my business, nor do I care, because I'm on my own journey and I'm building a life for myself and to impact other people that I want to impact. And when people really get to know me and have the opportunity to get to know me, they usually learn pretty quickly that, I have a really big heart and I have a lot of experience and knowledge and I'm a good leader, and some of those qualities that I have and have built over time. And they may not, if they don't get the opportunity to know me, they may have a prejudged disposition, but who cares? Like, I'm not going to lose sleep at night or lose energy over it, because it's just, those aren't my people that I'm trying to serve, I guess.
Yeah. So you just said something I want to touch on, and you said compete with yourself. So I think that is one of the healthiest things you can do. There's a lot of people out there who say, oh, I'm a super competitive person. Like I compete with everything, but that's not healthy if you're competing against others, because let's say I'm competing with someone that's in like chapter 10 of their journey and I'm on chapter 2. There's no way I'm going to be able to compete with them. They're just on another level. They know more. They've been through more experiences, what have you. But if I compete with the person I was yesterday, I'm going to be able to get further ahead. I might eventually catch that person, but I'm not going to compete with them, right? Do you agree with that? Like, don't compete with others. Compete with yourself on a daily basis.
100%, because there's always going to be someone that has more. There's always going to be someone that you perceive as better looking than you, more successful than you, more articulate and well-spoken than you are. Like, there's always more in the world. So if you're just competing against other people, you'll be miserable for your whole life. And it can be hard because you see what other people have, and some people that affects them negatively, because they're like, oh, I should have that, or I should look like this, or I should be this. But that's just a really dangerous road to go down. And of course, we all have to battle with it and go through that. But at the end of the day, if there's always going to be someone that you could perceive that has more than you, then you're just setting yourself up for a miserable life. And so I try really hard to do things every day to make sure that I'm just getting 1% better every day and comparing with myself, because this is who I am. I'm not changing. I can't go be reborn or look different or be different or think different. I can continue to expand my knowledge and my skills and my capabilities and intelligence and impact, but I can't be some other person that I wish that I was. So that's just a waste of energy, and it's not serving myself or anybody else. And so I really try to look at it through that lens. And I noticed, like, when I was younger, I would talk a lot about my goals and wanting to be a millionaire, and or how much money I made or what successes I had, along with the failures as well. And I noticed like how people cringe when you talk about money or when you talk about your success or goals or anything like that, because a lot of people are born with this like zero sum mindset. Like if you win, I lose. And I don't have that mindset. Like I was always super, super inspired when I was around people who accomplished something big or had way more than me or was in really good shape that I wanted to be in or anything like that, because it just inspired me and showed me what's capable of the human race. And it made me feel excited at the possibility of what I could go set out for myself to accomplish and go down that journey to accomplish it for myself, instead of seeing it as like, oh, I wish I looked like that, or I wish I had that much money or whatever. And like, for instance, Lila Hermosi, I really look up to her, Layla and Alex. And I actually caught myself yesterday, I was watching her podcast, and she was worth $100 million by 28, her and Alex, right? And I was like, damn, I'm only a multimillionaire by 27. Like I'm nowhere near 100 million. And like, that was a little glimpse inside where I was like, oh, I wish I had that, right? But I immediately caught myself and was like, I'm not them. I'm on my own journey and I'm on my own road. And that's super inspiring to me that was possible for somebody to accomplish, that another woman out there could accomplish $100 million of net worth by 28 years old, which I just turned 28. And I was like, that just helps me see the ceiling of the goals that I've set for myself. I didn't make $100 million a goal for myself. I made, X amount of million or whatever a goal for myself. And those are the goals that I hit. So it just inspires me to be able to think bigger and know like that's what's possible out there. So I'm going to push myself to be able to think bigger, dream bigger, and plan for bigger for myself. But I'm still competing with only myself.
Woo, guys, go back and listen to that last 2 minutes. Oh my God, the thing she hit on. So this thing right here, this phone, is a gift and a curse. I've built my entire business off of this thing. Selfie videos, posting them on social media, right? So I've created content that's gotten attention, and then through that attention, I've been able to monetize it with different services that help people, right? However, there's been times where I've scrolled and I start getting into comparison mode, right? Comparison is the thief of joy. If you compare yourself with someone else, you're stealing your joy. But what you said is, when you see that, you don't look at it as a comparison, you look at it as a motivation. Like, this person has that. If they've done it, why in the hell can't I, right? So it's not like I'm comparing myself, oh, woe is me, I'm not there. It's like, dang, they've done it. If they've done it, it's proof that it's possible, right? So let me go work my freaking ass off and get to it, because there's no way they got to it without working their freaking tail off, right? So I freaking love it. Guys, re-listen to that several times. If you're on the treadmill, if you're driving in your car, whatever you're doing, go back and listen to that. So we've talked a lot about the mindset stuff. We've talked about kind of your upbringing. Let's talk about the business. So your first business was in real estate as a realtor, right?
Yep, exactly.
Everyone's a realtor. Like, how did you set yourself apart?
So I think the stat, someone said like every 1 in every 168 people in Arizona has a real estate license. So that's a lot, right? And first off, I went into real estate not to be a realtor. I went into real estate to be an investor, and I wanted to be able to have access to the tools, the softwares and the networks, and also save on commissions on the buy and sale side of my own real estate assets. So I never really planned on being a realtor. I was like, oh, I'm not, I don't want to be a realtor like everybody else. But I got my license. I was waiting to go to college. I was just bored over the summer. And so I just decided to dive in and just learn the business. And I held an open house that was in my neighborhood. It was like $200,000. And one person showed up. It was the middle of summer, which is off season in Arizona because it's hot as Hades out there. And I ended up getting a $1.1 million commercial listing from the neighbor that came to the house. And so that was my very first deal, was a $1 million commercial listing. And then I immediately got another deal, which was a $1 million home in Troon. That was a luxury house. And so I set the bar pretty high right out of the gates and set myself apart. And that's where I decided I really wanted to focus on commercial and luxury which ultimately led me to opening up the firm where we do commercial and luxury real estate sales, which is super unique because most brokerages are they're either commercial or they're either residential. And there's, obviously niching or niching your business is the best for success, but I didn't want to silo myself because I did have a good book of business on both sides that I had built out over time.
I'm glad you said that because I never know if it's niching or niching. I have no idea. Anyone in the comments, please let us know if it's niching or niching. No clue. So you made it to where you could do both sides. And then how did that kind of spring into the investor side?
So with the money that I made, I bought my first property. I needed a place to live during college. So I bought what I could afford, saved some cash and invested in some stocks. I bought something that I could add value to because I wanted to be able to force appreciation and equity into it. So I, bought a property, I renovated it, hiring subcontractors, went through all the pains of renovation, and then furnished it, lived in it. And then as soon as I was able to buy another property, I bought another property and I rented that one out fully furnished. So that's how I learned about fully furnished rentals. It was already furnished. So I figured I'd list it as a fully furnished, like midterm rental. And I did really, really well. And so I continued down that kind of midterm furnished model for a while. And I just kept buying properties. And once I could buy another one, I'd move out of the one that I had renovated. And that is what added, the appreciation of my assets is really what helped me become a millionaire at a pretty young age. Because fortunately in Arizona, not only with the appreciation that happened, but with the value that I had added into the properties and then the passive income and the cash flow that I was building up to achieve kind of that financial freedom of not having to work a job, I eventually was able to quit my engineering job and, focus on building my companies, which is what led me to opening up my construction companies and then my real estate brokerage and then my hard money lending company. So that was the path that I took. And I started with zero. And my first check was $36,000. I put $20,000 down on a property and the ball started snowballing from there.
You were how old?
18.
So you made at 18, 36 grand and you had the wherewithal to put 20 of it down on the property?
Yeah.
Everyone give her an applause. Oh my God. At 18, if I would have made $36,000, I had a fake ID at 18. I'd be at the club getting bottle service and just going wild. So guys, that talks about kind of the mindset that Hannah has is like, you kind of seem beyond your years, kind of like an old soul, in my opinion. Have you been told that before?
Every day, yeah.
Okay. So at 18 years old, guys, she made $36,000. That's what a lot of people make the entire year. She's a kid at 18, and she uses 20,000 of it to buy a house, an asset. And not just any asset, one that she can put a value add on and then live in it, which you lived in it for how long?
I think like a year and a half.
Okay. So lived in it for a year and a half, built up some equity, right? Did you cross-collateralize that equity? So did you use the equity to go buy something else?
Neither. I just made more money and I used my more money to go buy another property. And that allowed me to continue to cash flow a larger amount on that asset. So I could start building up passive income because I really wanted the cash flow. And I've always had a big fear of losing it all, and going back to having nothing. And so I always was very careful to not over leverage. And I always wanted to make sure I had at least 20% or more equity in my properties.
Gotcha. So on average, what would you say you have as far as equity goes in your properties?
Oh, well, now I have a lot of equity. And you get into this conundrum, right? Because it's like, okay, your cash flow is really good, but you have so much equity. What is the return on equity that you could get somewhere else? But so those are kind of things you have to do in your head. But I think as a real estate investor, buying and holding is a really great strategy. Also, flipping can be a really great strategy as well. But I know a lot of investors that have been in this game a lot longer than I do. They all say their biggest mistake or their biggest regret is not holding on to the assets that they renovated, right? So if you can do a combination of earned income and passive income and hold assets, there's so much value in holding assets. And I loved real estate because I'm a very impulsive person by nature. I'm very impatient. And so I don't do very well in stocks because I emotionally and impulsively buy and sell, and like most of us do. And real estate, it forces you to be more illiquid. And so I would say now, out of all the assets I own, I have probably like 80% equity across all of them. Yeah, there's a lot of cash in there.
That's incredible. So one thing I want you guys to really pay attention to what she just said is there's two ways you can go about it. You could over leverage, which a lot of people would do that. They'd take the equity and they'd go get more assets. They take the equity from those and get more assets. That's good to an extent. One, your cash flow is going to go down because you have a bigger debt on the asset. But two, liquidity is very, very important. If things drop off, if things get tight, you've got 80% equity in properties right now. If that dwindled down to 40%, you still got 40%. You know what I mean? That you could use if you needed it. So it's very important to have like a balancing act, right?
Right. And I just always went the approach of, I know a lot of people pull the equity out because maybe that's their only earned income, is they're flipping properties and that equity is the income they're earning. But I just kept the equity in there, cash flowed larger amounts, cash flow. I would cost segregate the assets to offset my earned income, and I would earn the income from other means of business, like the companies I had or the job that I had or real estate sales. And that's where I realized how I kind of fell into the realtor side, where I started selling real estate, was because people saw what I was doing, because I would post on social media, like, here's this asset, here's my project, here's what I did. People saw what I was doing and they wanted to learn how to do it. And they wanted me to help them find a property to do it with. And so I was like, yeah, of course I'll help you. And then that's how I just naturally fell into selling real estate. And it's never been my full thing though. Like, it was always what I did on the side of my main business and my investing endeavors and things like that. But then, when you get into selling commercial, and then you could start having multiple six-figure commissions on single deals, then, it gets super exciting because it gives you that large amount of earned income all the time that you could then go invest into real estate and then cost segregate the real estate so you don't have to pay taxes on the earned income. So it's a really awesome machine.
Let's talk about cost segregation. A lot of people might not know what that is. So explain that to them like as easy as possible so people can understand.
All cost segregation is if you're a real estate professional, you can buy a property and then you can just accelerate the depreciation. All that means is you can offset income tax. So you just pay a company to do this report, they call it a study on the asset, and then they'll tell you an amount that you can write off against your ordinary income. And usually that amount is somewhere between 20 to 30% of the property value. So if you have an earned income, like after all your write-offs and everything like that, let's say you still have $200,000 of taxable income. Well, you could take that $200,000 that you're going to basically give to the government or half that, use it as a down payment on an asset that's going to cash flow, and then get the write-off. And so instead of paying the money to taxes, you just paid the money into an asset that's now going to build your wealth and cash flow over time. So that's what I've been doing every year. And then that forces you to hold the real estate, because if you sell it, then you have a recapture. Yeah.
Yep. And you can do a bonus depreciation. So you can have the entire depreciation of the property year one written off. So I'm sure you know a lot of little tax ninja moves. I know a ton of them. And most people, they think that, like the tax code, for instance, most of the tax code is actually loopholes, how to pay less taxes. Most people think, oh, the tax code is how to pay taxes. No, there's only a few pages of here's how to pay taxes. The rest is like, here's incentives that the government wants you to do in order for you to pay less taxes. Cost segregations being one of them, bonus depreciation. So I love that you've been doing that, because then you make more money because less is going to the federal government. So instead of taking that money and blowing it, which is what a lot of people would do, you've taken that money and put it into more assets that you can have more cost segregation studies on, more cash flow, more equity, more net worth. It's incredible. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, Devin. I'm proud of you too. You're awesome.
So proud of you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, this was what I did. I went in a compound calculator, and if you put in a compound calculator, your income being 40 or 50% higher every single year due to tax savings, your wealth gets compounded every single year, and it explodes way faster. But if you're losing half your money to Uncle Sam every year, it's going to take you way longer to truly build significant wealth. And so I have really dedicated a lot of time and energy to tax strategies, and it wasn't learned from my accountant. It was learned from really diving in and researching and teaching myself, because at the end of the day, your accountant, they don't make money from saving you taxes. They make money from just doing your taxes, filing your taxes. And so if you think that they're doing everything they can, they're not.
So important what she just said, guys. She's not learning from her accountant. An accountant is not a rich person. Most likely an accountant makes, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 grand, maybe. I don't know. She's probably learning from multimillionaires, maybe some billionaires. Like, I've got some billionaire friends. They're like acquaintances, but I've been able to lean on them and learn things that they do. So it's so important, guys, when you want to learn about something, learn about it from somebody that is at that level. Like, if you want to be a great father, don't learn from someone who doesn't even have a kid, right? Learn from someone who's a really good dad or a really good mom. If you want to be an amazing business person, learn from someone that has an amazing business. If you want to be a real estate investor, learn from someone who is a good real estate investor. So often people ask their parents, should I do this? Should I do that? Hey, mom, should I get into real estate investing? No, that's risky. Yet they've never done it, right? So it's like, learn from the right people. That is so huge, correct?
Yeah, I have a quote that I always say is, only take advice from someone you trade places with, and in that area that you're asking advice. So, like, exactly as you said, don't let somebody that's not where you would want to be financially or in business tell you how you should run your business or your money. Don't let somebody who's not where you want to be physically and like how they look and their body physique tell you what diet you should go on. I walk into the gym sometime and I see these personal trainers, and I'm like, I'm not going to pay you to teach me. Like, you don't have a nice body at all. Like, do you even work out? And so it's the same thing in real estate. Like, these big brokerages would have these trainers teaching you how to sell real estate that haven't sold real estate in 30 years or ever. I'm like, I'm not going to learn from you. I'm going to go learn from the best real estate agent in the state that I could find. And so I've always really tried to surround myself around the best people, and that way I could learn from the best.
I love it. So the more you get around really successful people, you start learning, at least for me, is I learned that when it comes to money, there are eroding factors on money and wealth. The first one, and probably the biggest one, taxes. Taxes are the biggest eroder of wealth, because you think about it, if you are in the top tax bracket with state and federal, you're paying over 40%. Mm-hmm. Boom, 40% of your wealth and your income gone. You'll never get it back. And who knows what it goes to, right? Who knows what the government spends it on? The second is paying interest to other people, right? You bought your G-Wagon. By the way, her G-Wagon is nasty. I drove it and I wanted one. You bought it cash, right?
No.
For some reason, I thought you bought it cash. Did you lease it?
No, I own it. I depreciated it, though, fully, 100% depreciation.
Got it, because it's over 6,000 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Got it. So taxes, paying interest to other people, biggest eroder of taxes, or of wealth and income. So if you guys can figure out how to get rid of those eroding factors, you'll become more wealthy just by default. You don't have to make more money. You just have to keep more of the money you're giving away. And when you start getting around these circles of people that know these things, naturally you just learn them and you become wealthier by default, right?
Right.
hanging out with the right people. If you want to get in shape, hang out with people that are in shape. You'll get in shape.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's the same thing.
But yeah, I love what you just said there about paying cash and versus financing, because we're in a world of financing, right? And I think the ability to use financing is part of what makes the opportunity in America so great. I remember when I visited Jamaica, there was like quarter-built houses, half-built houses, barely built houses all over the place. And I asked the guide, I was, why are these houses all abandoned or half-built or whatever? He goes, well, we don't have financing here. So people have to go work, save up money, start the project, and they run out of money. Then they have to go work, save up more money, go back to the project. And because the lack of financing, it is very difficult for that country to ever get ahead or people to really build wealth. So leverage is a beautiful thing, but it can also be a very destructive thing if it's used incorrectly. Just like you said, like when you pay cash, you're not giving all your money away to interest. And so I always look at things of, okay, if I'm going to pay interest on this asset and save a portion of my cash, where can I go invest that cash that's going to make more interest than what I'm paying?
Yes.
And if I can't invest the cash somewhere else to make more than what I'm going to pay in interest, then it makes sense to just pay cash, because you're going to be losing money if you don't, because you're going to, be paying higher interest on that thing. So as long as you can use leverage, and that's what's so difficult is so many Americans, they use leverage and then they go get more debt with what they saved because they use leverage. And that's where the whole Dave Ramsey methodology comes in, is if you can't really be trusted or trust yourself to go actually reinvest that cash that you saved because of the leverage, then it could just destroy you very quickly. But if you can really be smart about the leverage, then it can be an amazing tool to acquire assets, build businesses, and compound your wealth on a amount of money that you didn't need the whole amount of cash to purchase the asset with.
100%. And then if you can take advantage of the tax loopholes, like for instance, there's a tax loophole with private jets. Do you know about this one?
Mm-hmm.
So guys, I'll let you explain it.
Are you just talking about the depreciation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's none of this is tax advice, by the way. I always get comments. You can't. Anyway, talk to your tax attorney or CPA. But there's something called bonus depreciation, which has been dropping over the past couple of years because the current president has been trying to phase that out. But they have it with the Senate right now to get reinstated to 100% depreciation, which basically means if any asset you buy that, like any vehicle you buy or equipment you purchase that's over 6,000 pounds, you could write off 100% of that purchase price against your ordinary income for that year. I think right now we're at 60% because they've been starting to phase it out, but it could get reinstated to 100% next year if it gets passed with the Senate, I believe is the correct information, but could be wrong. But anyway, so yeah, you could buy a private jet for $2 million and you could literally, let's say it was back to 100%, you could write off that $2 million against your ordinary income. And then there's even more, like obviously you could write off the expenses and things like that. And then you could either lease out the jet to help make the payment for that if you want to, or you could just keep it for yourself and use it. Or you could also like lease it to your company, which now becomes an expense to your company. And then you get to write off that expense to your company. And then the money kind of goes back in your pocket. So there's so many amazing strategies with taxes. And then you could do cool things like own a jet or have a G-Wagon or whatever equipment that you use. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. One thing too, to add to that, guys, and again, this is not tax advice. I'm not a CPA. Check with your CPA. Disclaimer. If I have this cash here and I want to go buy the jet, let's just make believe that this is $200,000. It's not 200,000, it's 10 grand. But let's say it's $200,000 and the jet is $1 million. I can make a down payment with this 200 grand. So that would be 20% and then get a bank loan for the remainder. The rest of it would be 800,000. So now I only put 200 of my own money, yet I can write off the entire $1 million against my active income. Guys, these are, again, the things that the ultra wealthy know because they study the tax code, or I should say their accountants and their tax attorneys study the tax code. and then they advise them. So there's so many cool tricks. And you obviously use all your extra money to lend, right? You have the hard money lending company, Cashed, right?
Right.
So let's talk about how that kind of originated, because you were doing the real estate, you had the brokerage. How did you start getting into the lending?
So when interest rates started going up, prior to then, I had been saving a lot of cash, which normally I don't like to keep a lot of cash because it's not making money. I like to have assets, right? So I'd been saving up cash because I wanted to do a larger multifamily commercial value add project and get out of the single family game that I have been playing for many years. And obviously it takes more capital to purchase that project, to renovate it and everything like that. So I've just been kind of saving up, but I couldn't find any numbers to work. I couldn't make any of the numbers to work on the opportunities that I was finding out there. This was kind of post-COVID when the market was crazy. Interest rates were super low. Things were just absolutely insanely, outrageously expensive. And I didn't want to buy something just to buy something because, I still am an engineer at heart. I do the pro formas. I look at it and these numbers don't make sense. And there's so much risk here. And so I decided to start lending my money. And I had worked with hard money lenders in the past on residential fix and flip projects and obviously helping a lot of clients with their fix and flip projects. And I just started, picking the brain of one of my hard money lenders. He was just a private guy with $10 million that he just lent out at 1% a month to friends and family. And he's like, I love it. It's safe. It's collateralized by the real estate and it's easy and it keeps me busy and makes me a lot of money. So I just decided to run with it. And I wanted to make more. I didn't have, I wasn't planning on lending $10 million out of the gates of my own cash. So I just decided to start targeting lower dollar amount loans that were higher interest. So I could put more loans out at a time and make a much higher return so I could compound my profits more quickly. And then with the ultimate goal of starting a fund and then being able to scale that fund nationally. And at that point, I could take a smaller percent because I would be able to leverage other investors' money on a large scale, which is what I'm doing now.
How long ago was just the smaller loans? When did you start that?
When interest rates started going up. So a couple years ago now, I think.
Oh yeah. So early 2023.
Was that when it was? Yeah. Well, I started doing this. That's when I started doing a lot of them is when it started going up. But I started the first loan I did was, I probably shouldn't say that one, but I did a personal loan for someone when I was 18 in the amount of $25,000, not collateralized. And I was like, oh, this is cool to get interest on my money with no work, right? Passive income for the most part. But I was like, okay, but it's not collateralized. That's super high risk. And I can't just trust everybody to pay me back. And then I did another loan for $100,000 uncollateralized to a really, really good friend of mine that I trusted a lot. And he was able to take that 100,000 and basically turn it into $1 million. And I charged 10 grand a month for the money. And that's when I realized what people would pay for quick cash. And that's when I started doing, $100,000, $50,000 to $100,000 cash out refinance loans or fix and flip loans or anything like that. That was backed by real estate. And that's where it all began. And that was a few years ago that I really started doing that.
Cool. So guys, really pay attention to what she said on the collateral. That is so important, is to have something backed. Because if you just lend money to somebody, if you've got no collateral, they could kind of just not pay you and you can't do anything. You could try to hunt them down. You don't look like someone that's going to rough somebody up.
I don't know. I have a good network.
It's one of those things where I've done a lot of lending as well, and you always want to make sure you have a lien position. I always try to get first lien. Do you do the same?
Yeah. I will do seconds on small amounts, but usually first.
If the deal is really, really good, right? So it always depends on the deal. I've always told people that I think that lending is really the only truly passive income in real estate. Truly. I've done Airbnbs, I've done long-term rentals. They're not passive. There's a lot of work that goes into them. With lending, there's a little bit of work that goes into it up front. You have to like vet the person, you got to vet the deal, you got to look at the pro forma, all that stuff. But as long as it's a good deal and there's not much risk because the deal is good, lend on it. And then it's passive. You just have checks coming in the mail. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do agree. I mean, if you do riskier loans, then it becomes more active because you have to basically play bill collector, which I do often, and you're kind of chasing people down to pay you and things like that. But I would say I would compare it to like a long-term furnished rental that has a property manager on it. It's pretty passive, but there's some upfront work, and sometimes you got to work with the manager or deal with some issues and things like that. But for the most part, it's like you said, it's as passive as you can get. That's not just putting your money in a stock that has a dividend.
Yeah. We're in two different worlds, I guess, with it, because you do more riskier loans because you can charge 10% a month. It's insane to me. I charge like 15% annually. So
Yeah.
What I lend on is there's really no risk. It's very little risk, and then I get a personal guarantee. So if the LLC doesn't pay me, I can go after the person's personal belongings, their cars, their jewelry, things like that. So I literally never have to ask for any payments. It's just checks coming in the mail, which is the greatest thing ever. So as far as like what's next for you, you've done so much at your age. You're 28, right? Just turned 28?
Mm-hmm.
So young. Oh my gosh. At me at 28, I'm telling you, if I could be in your shoes at 28, I'd probably be on a yacht somewhere. But what's next for you? You've done so much. What do you have on your plate?
So I just launched the debt fund, and I'm going to be raising, capital nationally from accredited investors and paying them a 10% return on their money. And then I'm going to continue to be able to scale the lending company nationally, focusing more on commercial assets, so bigger loans. And those will be normal interest rates, like normal hard money rates, like 12 to 15% type thing. And the goal with that is to get it to $1 billion fund. At what point I could either be having, quite a bit of passive income each year, like in the 20 to 30 million mark, or be able to liquidate that company to a public company at that point and have a couple $100 million exit or $100 million exit or whatever, depends on how much we're originating. But that's my goal right now that I'm super, super focused on. And I love lending, and then also continue to build out my commercial real estate team and brokerage. And it's nice because if you're lending on commercial real estate and you also invest in commercial real estate, you're getting deals from both sides, because I love investing in real estate and adding value and developing and all of those things. And then being the lender on it too, you can lend on your own projects and things like that. So that's kind of the goal for me moving forward.
So like we said, with lending, it's important to get a lien position and all that stuff. So in the fund, is the fund going to have a lien position?
Yeah, exactly. So the fund is basically the lender. And so, yeah, they're protected by the first lien position as collateral.
And it'll just be pro rata on how much they have in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just quarterly distributions on however much they have in. Yep.
Got it. Okay. So my thought, just thinking out loud here, is like a lot of people listening are like, man, I'd love to make 10%. I'd love to do that, especially if there's not much risk. Again, guys, if there's a lien position, there's very little risk. It's going to be back to real estate, correct?
Yep. Yeah. And normally it's like a 65 to 70% LTV. So we have really low loan to values, and they're all value add projects. So you could easily go in if you need to take the property back. I mean, I have friends who own massive debt funds, $1 billion debt funds, who, work with me and help me out. And they've had like a 2% default rate over the past 15 years. Like you just have such a good position that people don't they're going to find a way to pay you off, because they don't want to lose their huge down payment and the asset and the value add opportunity and the equity of the asset. So it's as safe as you could pretty much get when it comes to investing.
Super safe because of the LTV, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, you think of, let's say I was going to raise capital and the LTV was 90%. pretty risky, guys, because if the market takes a dip and it corrects, now that asset's upside down, right? However, what she's talking about, if there's a 60 to 65% loan to value and the market corrects, let's say, in my opinion, I don't think it would ever correct at this point more than like 10%. So let's say that happens. There's still 30 to 35% equity in that deal. So it's very safe. There's a lean position. Most people would love to make 10%. How can they get a hold of you to do that?
Yeah, just go straight to my Instagram. I manage that account. It's at Hannah B. Hammond on Instagram, and then cashedlending.com. I'm actually redoing the website right now, so probably should just go straight to my Instagram, and they can email me as well, Hannah at cashedlending.com, and cashed is with a K.
Perfect. Cool. So guys, I would highly recommend, if you're looking for different investments, look towards Hannah. I mean, 10% is, a lot of people would love to make that. The thing that I would always just say is research the person. Like, look into Hannah, Google her. Like, the funny thing is, guys, I actually Google myself almost every day. I want to see if there's any negative press on me, So luckily there's none. But Google the person that you're going to lend to. Google their company. Just do your due diligence. But if you feel comfortable with it, lend to Hannah. Get 10%, because if your money's sitting in the bank, you're earning 0.06%. You are losing money due to inflation. So look up Hannah. Lend to her if you're comfortable with it. Let's talk about real quick 2 things. First thing, your favorite book. What would it be for the listeners?
Well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad has my heart, because that's what taught me about assets versus liabilities and cash flow and building wealth and everything. So I think that's a number 1 book to start with for people who are getting started. A lot of people have already read that. So more recently, Who Not How first. Love that book. And 10X is easier than 2X. Dan Sullivan's great in his principles. And I know you said 1 book, but there's so many. I'm such a big reader. And the one I actually just finished this morning is Expert Secrets by Russell Branson, who is where I think Alex Hormozy learned a lot of his skills from. And that really talks about like the sales and marketing and ClickFunnels and the story that's so important to achieve a sale and everything like that. So those are some really good ones.
Yeah, people learn from stories. I'm one of those people that I need to read a book that's a story form, or my attention span goes in la la land. So a lot of good books, guys. I'll list off a few. Mr. Schmooze. You ever read that one?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's so good. It's about this intern who interns for this guy, Mr. Schmooze. And just the name, he's a schmoozer. Like, he's all about building relationships and how that's made him into a super successful person. So the intern goes along with him for the summer and learns all these different things of how to elevate experiences with people so that they like and trust you. If they like and trust you, they'll do business with you. It's all just a story form. The Go-Giver. You read that one?
Yeah, that's one of my all-time favorites.
Such a good book. Again, a story form that just gives you just amazing nuggets of how to excel in life. So reading is so important. What would you tell the listeners to end this with, where if there was one last thing you could tell people, one thing and one thing only before you left this green earth, what would you tell them?
That's so good. I always say Steve Jobs' quote is, "Here's to the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs and the square holes, and the ones who have no respect for the status quo. Some may call them crazy, but we see them as genius, because the ones who are crazy enough to change the world are the ones who do." And to me, it's just be crazy, be authentic, be fearless. And I know people look at me crazy when I say I want to be a billionaire, but it's true. It's the ones who are crazy enough to think they could change the world are the one who do. So just being authentic to yourself, and something I've learned over time, and being comfortable with who you are, and just going after, there's no limit on your potential and what you want for your life, and just never settling, because you can have it all. You really can. So, yeah.
I love that. One thing I want to touch on that you just said is people look at me crazy when I say I want to be a billionaire, right? The wrong people will look at you crazy. The right people will be like, yeah, you can do it, right? Or they'll be along with you. Because I remember when I heard you say that, we were at the growth house and we're all going around with the baton and everyone was holding it like a microphone, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. Yeah. But you were like, yeah, my goal is to be a billionaire. And I looked at you and I was like, hell yeah. Because like I have that same goal. So the right people, they'll be on board with your crazy visions. The wrong people, the ones that, as bad as this sounds, as you kind of push out of your life, are going to be the ones that are the naysayers, even if it's family. That's the hardest part, is like when you have such big, lofty visions and the people that are pulling you down are like the crabs in the bucket kind of thing. If a crab tries to get out of a bucket, the other crabs pull it back down. They don't want it to get out. It's kind of how family and friends are. If you say you want to be a billionaire, in their minds, they're thinking, there's no way I could do that. So let's keep her down here with us. Those are the people you got to get out of your life. Not to a point where you're like, let's say it's your parents and they need you. You're not there for them. It's just you distance yourself from them because you don't want their negative energy to impact your ultimate goal, right?
I think that the number one, it's so hard, there's a lot of number ones, but probably the number one key to long-term success is your reference group. And the first one being the partner that you pick, right? And then the friends that you surround yourself with and the networks that you're in. Because if you, like, it's proven, you are basically the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I had to go through a big awakening and reslating of my circle. You know, I feel like every time I grow, I outgrow some people that are in my reference group, and there has to be a shift in that. And then my reference group changes to keep up with where I want to go and who I am becoming as I grow and evolve. And it can be really hard because you may think, oh, I've been friends with this person forever, or this is my family member or whatever. But if people are making you feel contracted and they're holding you down and they don't have bigger dreams for you than you do, then I don't think those are people that you should be spending your time with ever, as hard as it may seem mentally. But your people should have bigger dreams for you than you do. Right. And I only have maybe 1 or 2 in my life that I could say that about. And those are the people that I happen to spend the most time with. And
I love it. Yeah, because if someone says to you, and you're ascending in life, right? You're ascending in life, and someone says to you, you've changed. That means that you haven't. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to keep changing. I'm ascending. I don't want to go back down. So get around the right people. Keep that group that you're around, people that believe in you and people that are trying to bring you higher, because a rising tide lifts all boats, right?
Right. Yep. We're either growing or we're dying. And for me, it's an insatiable hunger. And it's not that I'm not content. Like now it's not, oh, I need to get this to be happy, right? It's a completely different mindset. It's, I am growing or I'm dying. And that's true for plants as it is for humans, as it is for your business. Like if your business isn't growing, then your business is dying. That's just how it goes. And same for you. And so it's just constantly pushing the limits of your human potential in this world and the impact that you can have on the world. And for me, the more money I make, the more skills I have, the more growth that I have, the larger the impact I can make on other people and be a resource to help people get out of the miserable situations that they might be in. And so it's just an insatiable hunger to just be better every single day and keep growing every single day and just level up and make an impact.
Love it. I love it. Guys, I know you got so much value from this young lady. If you are not following her, make sure you do so. If you're on my YouTube and you're not subscribed, make sure to do that. Hit the bell so you get notified every time I put out these videos. Hit the like, do a comment, do all the things that the algorithm loves so this channel can grow. and we can all grow together. And if you're listening to this, share it with whoever you know that can get value, because I know, without a doubt, everyone that you know can. So without further ado, I love you guys. Until next time, peace.